In this video, I want to look at even and odd. And there are two big questions that we have about even and odd numbers. First, what does it mean for a counting number to be even? And second, how do we tell if a counting number is even? And you most likely already know the answer to these questions. They have different answers even though they characterize the same numbers. So let's look at these questions a little bit closer. The first question I want to look at, what does it mean for a number to be even? One way to answer this is that a number is even if it is divisible by 2. In other words, there's no remainder when we divide by the number 2. Another way to say it, it can be factored into 2 times another integer. We can multiply 2 by some number to get this number, then it would be even. We could also say it is that we could divide that number of things into 2 equal groups with none left over. Finally, you can divide that number of things into 2 groups with none left over. So this is all different ways that we could describe and define the word even and what it means for a number to be even. Now that we have this, let's look at the corresponding question, what does it mean for a number to be odd? In general, if an integer is not even, then we call it odd. So each of the ways that we had to define the word even, we have a corresponding definition for odd. The first, a number is odd if it is not divisible by 2. In other words, there is a remainder when you divide by 2. We say a number is odd if it cannot be factored into 2 times another integer. I cannot write the number as 2 times another integer. The next way to define it, there is one thing left over when you divide that number of things into 2 equal groups. And finally, there is one thing left over when you divide that number of things into groups of 2. So now that we know what it means for a counting number or an integer to be even or what it means for them to be odd, let's look at how we can tell if a number is even or odd. So looking at our second question, how can we tell if a counting number is even? Let's consider a number like 237,921. Chances are you don't actually divide this number by 2 to see if there's a remainder or not. Instead, what most people do is just look at the ones digit here. In general, if an integer has a 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8 in the ones digit, it's an even number. And if the integer has a 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9 in the ones digit, then it is odd. So in this case, this number would be odd since it has a 1 in the ones digit. But the question is, why is this a valid way to determine that there will be a remainder when we divide by 2? In order to look at why this method works, we need to think about representing the number in base 10 blocks. So as an example, 351 we would represent with 3 bundles of 100, 5 bundles of 10, and 1 individual 1 block. In this case, a counting number is even if that number of items, that number of base 10 blocks, can be divided into 2 groups with none left over. So what we would do is we would take all of our 10 bundles and all of our 100 blocks and our 1,000 cubes, etc., and we would want to break them into groups of 2. And we know we can do that easily. Each bundle of 10 can be broken into 5 groups of 2 very easily. Each group of 100 can be broken into 50 groups of 2, etc. Each group of 1,000 can be broken into 500 groups of 2, and we can consider this. So from the tens place up, each bundle, each 10 block, can be divided into groups of 2 with none left over. So therefore, the only thing that we don't know that can be divided by 2 into groups of 2 with none left over would be the ones place, the 1 blocks. So we only need to consider the ones digit to see if a number is even or odd, since everything higher we know can be broken up into groups of 2 very nicely.